Hello everyone, my name is Major League Gaming Trap. For today, I am going to be ranking Murder Drone's characters from good to evil. The rules are simple. 1. Crossovers near the characters may or may not have had with some 4 won't be included. 2. Nothing from glitching. 3. This is all opinion based. With all of that out of the way, let us begin. Let's start off with the good tier. This tier is for the characters that are the hero of their story, have done acts of kindness, or are innocent in nature. The gold medal for the most good character goes to
Serial designation and is a former worker drone turned vampire-like robotic disassembly drone who was sent to kill all worker drones with the help of the MJ, but after meeting Uzi Doorman, he started to question his actions and eventually betrayed his team and became an ally of Uzi and the other worker drones. Despite being a disassembly drone, and is cheerful, friendly, and kind, and will never show hostility towards anyone, even to those who hurt or mock him, and is also a bit dim-witted and is usually treated as worthless in the eyes of the other disassembly drones, especially Jay, however, and is also capable of intelligence and is able to trick others. Although he starts off as the disassembly drone who killed many worker drones and humans, not only does he not show any statistically whenever he kills, but he shows open remorse and hesitance in doing so and has elected to spare worker drones like Uzi, defying his programming despite knowing it would put himself at bad odds with his teammates. It's also worth noting that he needs to regularly feast on the oil inside the drones in order to survive. He helped Uzi in saving the colony twice from JB and the Absolute Solver, respectively. He put his life at risk twice to protect Uzi from Dal. He helped Uzi in stopping the Absolute Solver from destroying the Copper 9 and the universe, while Uzi pretended to be a new member of N's disassembly drone squad and was highly sociable and polite with her, never once badmouthing his teammates for their treatment of him as he described them to her in detail.
the silver medal of good goes to
That is worker drone who was classmates with Uzi Doorman, being one of the few worker drones who is friendly towards her prior to her meeting, and Uzi also had a crush on Thad, but ended up losing interest in him and gained feelings for N despite being a jock. Thad is kind and is worried about other people. Thad also is shown to forgive others, such as immediately forgiving N for his actions after he decided to protect the other worker drones from his former allies. He is also thankful of Uzi and N for saving his life, to the point of allowing them to his party. He put his life on the line to protect his colony from the MJ and gave Uzi her aid to put an end to the Solver MJ's plans to wipe out Copper 9 and the universe. Unlike everyone in the colony, Thad was the only worker drone who treated Uzi with kindness, being friendly to her and even worrying when she got injured in class. Thad has no corrupting qualities and is easily one of the nicest people in the show.
the bronze medal of good goes to
Uzi Doorman is worker drone in Copper 9 with Solver powers that decided to fight the disassembly drones to protect her colony and get the respect of her father. After becoming friends with the disassembly drone named N, Uzi grew determined to find about the drone's past and later how she gained her powers. With her ending saving Copper 9 from the Absolute Solver MJ, she played a pivotal role in redeeming N and B, saved her colony from being wiped out on 2 occasions by J and B and the Absolute Solver, respectively, stopped the Solver from wiping out the memories of N and B and overriding the Solver's power at their admin, and consumed the Absolute Solver and thus preventing it from causing any more harm to the universe using Finn and Tess's bodies. After Uzi vanished herself from the colony because of her father leaving her out of fear, Uzi grew to be misanthropic and made it her initial goal to wipe out all humans instead. Despite this, she is able to understand that the disassembly drones are just pawns of humans and that they should move from their hatred towards them, which is why she saved the frontal. Uzi can also show a nicer side, but hides it with a cold exterior. Despite being an anti-hero with jerkish, arrogant, egotistical and misanthropic traits, this doesn't stop or hinder her admirability nor make her morally ambiguous, as she still wishes to save everyone she cares about and only kills people who are villainous and does her best to protect innocents and her loved ones. What's more, is that, unlike her mother, Nori, she manages to mellow out towards other disassembly drones and even reconsiders her plans on exterminating humanity after realizing the true cruelty of the Absolute Solver, showing her moral standards and as well as her integrity, which is shown later on in the series. Nori Doorman is the mother of Uzi Doorman and the former test subject of the underground labs of Copper 9, who, after nearly dying from an attack of a disassembly drone, survived at the core and spent years trying to find a way to stop the Absolute Solver from destroying Copper 9. She ended up reuniting with Uzi after she and her boyfriend ended up getting to the underground lab. She convinced Khan to build the doors of the outpost to protect worker drones from when the disassembly drones attacked, thus protecting hundreds of them for years, spent years trying to find a way to stop the Solver, and told Uzi how to defeat the Solver and giving her a big kicks to help her fight the Solver and Jay, which played a big role in the battle. While it seems like that Nori's Solver powers greatly hurt Alice and that is why she despises her in the present, it seems this was without Nori's control, especially since it was shown that her Solver powers at one point forgave her, something Nori wouldn't have wanted as they were great friends and trusted each other. However, She has many jerkish moments, being rude towards them by referring to him as Dom, physically forcing him into hiding the truth from her daughter Uzi about her being alive, and slapping Uzi once she realizes they're dating and even grounding her for it. She threatened to kill him if he dared to tell Uzi that she was alive. She is also xenophobic towards disassembly drones as she slapped Uzi for dating and due to hating disassembly drones for nearly killing her. While she isn't shown having any issues with them in the finale, it is never shown if she has improved over this. Regardless, Nori is a good person at heart. She loves her daughter and husband, choosing to isolate herself out of fear over indirectly jeopardizing their lives and their relationship with each other. Condor Man is the father of Uzi Dorman and the leader of the Worker Defense Force, as well as the maker of the doors on Outpost 3. While initially a cowardly and neglectful parent, Khan comes to realize his errors with Uzi and become a better person, helping her in saving the universe from the Absolute Solver. He built the doors of the outpost which protected hundreds of Worker drones from the disassembly drones for years, saved them from the Absolute Solver, and helped them in defeating it. Even though he refers to disassembly drones as a bad crowd, this seems to be because of them being mass murderers and bad influence towards his daughter rather than any personal xenophobia. Unlike his wife Nori, who hates disassembly drones for destroying her body and even slapped Uzi for dating, and by contrast, Khan doesn't have any negative feelings towards the disassembly drones themselves, being happy that they are friends with Uzi and even saving him despite being one. However, he is still shown to have a jerk moment where he blames the teacher for how Uzi ended up being and threatened to install a door on his face if he called her damaged again. However, given how the teacher was being rude to Uzi, this shows Khan's love for her. Khan wishes to keep the colony safe with as little bloodshed as possible. He also seems to have developed trauma from encountering the murder drones, refusing to harm the Worker Defense Force in favor of fortified doors.
Next up is the neutral tier. This tier is for the characters that have their good and their bad moments, don't do anything, but don't take sides.
Lizzie is a popular student in the Outpost 3 school hierarchy, the classmate of Uzi Dorman, the real designation Lee's best friend, and Doll's former best friend. She reveals elements of the popular girl archetype, the high nose with an even higher ego. She is likely on good terms with her teacher, as evidenced by the fact that she and Doll are the ones sent by him to accompany Uzi Dorman to prom. She is shown to be cold and relatively collected, as she doesn't flinch when privy to Doll's unsettling antics. With more boldness than warranted, Lizzie plays her cards smart and isn't afraid to pull out an aggressive hand. This is shown by her out-manipulating the real designation Lee's manipulation, using her father's power to forcibly demand the crowd's respect for the newly declared prom queen, and skillfully utilizing the speech tactic of involving the audience when calling out Rebecca. Lizzie is not heartless despite her bratty behavior, as she is worried for Dee when the latter is about to fall for Doll's trap, warning Dee to escape at the last second. Along with this, she seems to reassure Doll before she goes to kill Dee at the prom, and along with Doll, attempts to help Sad when he's defending the workers from Dee. It is implied that she helps Ann and Dee repair themselves after finding them ripped apart backstage. Lizzie was later seen holding a funeral for Doll, showing how she still cared for her friend despite everything, while also bad-mouthing Rachel. Tessa James Elliott is the daughter of James and Louise Elliott, and an Australian human who brought several worker drones over to her house as a child, giving them functions and clothes. 3 of them were in the MJ in the present. Tessa arrived on Copper 9 to find out which drones were infected with the Absolute Solver to prevent it from becoming an even bigger threat. However, it would later be revealed that Tessa had actually died back on Earth and that the Absolute Solver has been using her corpse fused with Flint to manipulate everyone into its fitting. In her youth, Tess was a very lively and kind-hearted individual, although somewhat morbid, hinted at by the decor in her room. Young Tess was as usual, having little to no interest with other humans and didn't know how to interact with them, exclaiming that she had only ever talked to robots. Despite her parents' dismay, she had an affinity toward drones and preferred to spend her time with them instead. While Tessa was usually seen close to Jay and appeared to be her favorite drone, she also enjoyed fixing broken drones and giving them names and human hair, something other humans disapproved of. As an adult, Tessa, really the Solver impersonating her, was first portrayed as a rather serious and intimidating individual during the ending of the promenade. From the way the Solver portrayed adult Tessa, she seemed to be overly confident, exclaiming human-made security this human can control, with pride and confidence, despite not actually having control over the Sentinels. Adult Tess also retained a bit of an immature and childish streak, laughing and spinning around as she did when she was a child, which yet again makes sense that this was what the Solver was exposed to. However, when it was revealed that Tessa's body was grafted onto Sin, the Absolute Solver completely dropped the Imitation Act. Serial designation D is a disassembly drone-like vampire created by J.C. Jensen for the purpose of eliminating worker drones of Copper 9. She killed Doll's parents, force-fed worker drone his own intestines while his family watched before murdering all of them, and killed a camper for not signing himself when Ann told him to. She, Jay, and Ann killed countless worker drones in attempts to wipe them all out from Copper 9, having so many of them murdered that it made a tower filled with their corpses. He in particular developed a sadistic act where she enjoyed killing Bones brutally. She was a former member of Jay's squad, along with Anne, until the latter's sudden alignment with a rebellious worker named Uzi ultimately led to Jay's destruction and her capture when they were attempting to destroy her colony, with her slowly warming up to Uzi and Anne joining their side as an anti-hero. She spent years distancing herself from Anne to protect him from the Solver, took the blame for Uzi's massacre to protect her for Anne's sake, sacrificed herself to save Uzi and Anne from the Sentinels, and helped defeat the Solver and Jay to save Copper 9. However, unlike Anne, she has no remorse for her murders of worker drones and humans, particularly Bell's parents, whose deaths turned her into a vengeful serial killer. She goes as far as claiming they didn't taste good as a sadistic joke, which even Anne calls her out on. Even after her redemption, she has many moments of being a jerk to others, especially Uzi, whom she antagonizes relentlessly out of jealousy for her relationship with Anne, even trying to use the Solver's possession over her as an excuse to kill her. Even though their relationship does grow and she warms up to Uzi by the end, she still acts petty towards her, such as when she smugly smirked at her while saving her from being killed by Sin and briefly drew her gun on her when after finally killing the Solver, though it was more out of paranoia than her trying to be mean. She also put her closing speech during her last class presentation alongside Lizzie. She shows no gratitude for Uzi saving her and then from getting their memories wiped by the Solver, yelling at her to get out of her head and threatening her with chainsaw hands after they wake up. She also has a slight ego, only stopping her near massacre of the Brum because she realized she was being crowned Brum Queen. While being held captive by Alice, she gloated to Uzi about her parts being considered more valuable than hers. Sin was a worker drone who was improperly disposed of, resulting in the absolute Solver mutating inside of her and taking her as the host to cause destruction. Under the Solver's influence, Sin was responsible for many major events in the series, from the Elliot Manor Galley massacre to the deployment of disassembly drones to Copper 9. Following the massacre and fusing the deceased Tessa's body with herself, Sin proceeded to reconstruct MJD and other worker drone servants of the manor into disassembly drones that she unleashed upon humanity afterwards that ultimately led to the destruction of Earth and humankind. It is not easy to ascertain Sin's real personality and actual mannerisms, as little is known of her from before her disposal, and after rebooting she has seemingly no control over herself due to the Solver possessing her.
Last up is the evil tier. This tier is for the characters that are the villain of their story, have done terrible acts, or are bad in nature.
James Elliot is the owner of Elliot Manor and is the husband of Louise Elliot and the father of Tess Elliot, who has hatred for worker drones. He was one of the humans massacred by Sin. Despite not much known about him at the moment, he is shown to be rude and abusive towards people he sees as worthless or a disappointment, much like his wife, Louise. He is shown mistreating the worker drones, insulting and yelling at them, and even goes as far as killing them. He has an immense hatred toward worker drones, only seeing them as tools and the attempts to look more human-like as creepy. He is also shown to be annoyed toward Tessa for adopting so many of them. He would also dismiss them back to her rather than berate him any further. He is very annoyed with worker drones, even insulting them and killing them for using the wrong style of setting up the table for the gala. Louise Elliot is the abusive mother of Tessa, who also has hatred against worker drones. She was still fighting at the gala. Louise is the parent who often scolds her daughter for her liking of worker drones and regularly has her chained in her room for questioning or disobeying her most slightly. She is hateful towards Tessa's worker drones, calling them dumpster pets, and plans to have them disposed of after she finds them outside of the mansion's library. Louise dislikes Sin most, wanting Sin out of her sight and calling her an antichrist. She also has little tolerance for others looking back to her and has the evil designation and chained off to Bree for calling her fandom, and apparently teaching Sin to rebel against her orders. After Tessa refuses to obey to her parents, James and Louise chain her up in her bedroom with Jay and Sin before attending back to the gala with his wife. Later, Tessa and Jay interrupt a dinner party to confront Sin. His wife scolds her daughter Tessa for her dressing rude and disgusted tone, while James tells Tessa to hold her gun in a less cool manner before him, along with his wife Louise and the other guests, both get thrown aside by Sin's absolute Solver and being killed by Sin afterwards. JTJNSON is an interstellar company that was stationed on Earth, whose main services are manufacturing various products ranging from branded pens to worker drones, autonomous robots serving as servants for humans. Neither the date of incorporation nor the company's founders are known. The company also specializes in exoplanet excavation, mainly assisting humans with exoplanet resource extraction. One of them was Copper 9, where JTJNSON offered assistance to humans by sending in needed equipment and mass amounts of worker drones that were used just like slaves. Despite the worker drones' efficiency in their work, they were mistreated and disregarded for their sentence, akin to being slaves. After Copper 9's core collapsed, all biological life on the exoplanet went extinct. Shortly after, the now abandoned worker drones quickly moved on to create their future for themselves. At first, it was thought that JCJNSON didn't like the idea of sentient, rebellious robots, so they soon ushered in several launch pods containing squads of disassembly drones, known as murder drones, by their prey, to kill all worker drones they find. However, it later turned out that the disassembly drones are actually sent by Sin to set the Absolute Solver's plans in motion, eliminating all their hosts and accessing Cabin Fever labs to find and destroy the Crucifix patch, the USB device capable of removing the Solver's influence. Using Tessa's corpse created over Sin as its main host, the Solver impersonated the former as a certified technician from JCJNSON to defeat them, while J and B both acted as their accomplices. The disassembly drones that got to the labs were destroyed by the Sentinels. After the destruction of serial designation J due to the railgun, the Absolute Solver understands that its plans to destroy Copper-9 may not be implemented. Tessa and a new backup of J arrived on Copper-9 with the goal of reaching the Cabin Fever lab, having convinced Dull for help at first and later deceiving NUZ and B into pursuing Dull while both parties are racing to reach the labs first. Upon reaching the labs, the Solver possessed Sin would succeed at killing Dull and hijacking Uzi to destroy the Crucifix patch. It's unclear if the company is still in operation. Dull is the cannibal worker drone who wants revenge on murder drones for killing her parents, namely her mother Eva. She is the arch-enemy of Eve. She murdered these competitors for Prom Queen in cold blood and trapped Uzi, Eve, and Tessa in the hallway leading to the elevator and unleashing the Sentinel to kill them, which led to Eve sacrificing herself and nearly getting killed. She murdered dozens of fellow worker drones throughout Outpost 3 to feed on their oil to prevent from overheating, with countless wings and parts scattered throughout her home. Dull is an introverted worker drone who desires revenge for the murder of her parents at the hands of Eve. Dull is shown to be intelligent, as she was able to both convince Lizzie to bring Eve to the prom and kill all her competition so he could become the prom queen, so Dull would be able to kill her. As evil as she is genuinely tragic, as her parents were killed by the end she was forced to watch while it happened, which is why she wanted to get revenge on Eve in the first place. She also inherited the Absolute Solver's abilities from her mother, something that both forced her to resort to cannibalism to avoid overheating and dying and put her at risk of being possessed by the Solver, something that she's shown to be horrified by and drives her to free herself from its influence, so she is used to destroy Copper-9. She also showed care for some people such as Lizzie and that the former she wants to avenge by killing Eve, her care for Lizzie being shown by them getting along and her deciding not to kill her and instead throw her aside when she backs up on their plan to kill Eve, and with that being shown by her and Lizzie trying to help him after the end Jay's assault on the base. She shows respect and sympathy for Uzi after realizing she had the Solver too, promising to help her if she finds the patch to exercise the Solver's influence. She also salutes her with a sorrowful expression before jumping down the elevator shaft to find the patch. She also shows respect for Khan, believing he is the reason Uzi is a good person, and avoids killing him despite nothing preventing her from doing so. Her reason for wanting to exercise the Solver from herself and Uzi is so it can use them to destroy Copper-9, making her well-intentioned extremist and shows she cared for her kind.
The Bronze Medal of Evil goes to
Serial designation J is a disassembly drone who was initially believed to have been created and sent out to Copper-9 by the interstellar company JCJNSON to achieve the goal of wiping out all runway ice in said planet, as even mentioned by herself and others. However, it was later revealed that this was, in fact, not true. As it turns out, J was actually a former worker drone who was then converted by the Absolute Solver controlling Sin and is following its command so the program would let her live. She is a disassembly drone, the former boss of NMD, and secretly an ally of the Absolute Solver. She killed millions of worker drones and built him a spiral out of their corpses, attempted to kill him by infecting him with the virus just because he questioned the company, and aided the Absolute Solver in trying to destroy Copper-9. Even in the past, J was an abusive victim and without the Solver influencing her in any way, kissing him unprovoked and outright telling him to kill himself. Although not as brutal as he, as the leader of the trio, J is responsible for the countless deaths of many worker drones. Unlike N and B, her former disassembly drone co-workers, she never redeems herself or unites with Uzi and remains antagonistic. While she's willing to work with the Solver, she still retains her care for Tessa, as prior to beginning working for the Solver, J was shown to have been genuinely friends with Tessa, being worried about how her parents are treating her, and even saving her life from the Solver-possessed Eve.
the Silver Medal of Evil goes to
Alice was one of the worker drones who were experimented on with the Absolute Solver by humans in the Cabin Fever lab. After the corporal labs killed the humans, Alice and her partner in crime will continue to haunt the abandoned lab, murdering any and all disassembly drones and worker drones that entered the lab, while harvesting their body parts to keep for herself. After Copper-9's corporal lab wiped out all non-robotic life on the planet, she became a serial killer in the underground offices of Cabin Fever lab, ambushing and killing disassembly drones and worker drones for their body parts, collecting their fingers and hearts for herself. She murdered and dissected worker drones and disassembly drones, as well as keeping their body parts so she could use them, cut Uzi's finger and stabbing her hand just for being Nori's daughter, and sent Sentinel to kill N and Tessa, while forcing Uzi to watch. She has no care for Bo, as shown by her constant rebel, and at one point, physical abuse towards him. While he works for her out of fear and respect, she only has pragmatic intentions towards him and is never shown actually having any true fondness towards him. While she seems to have some concern for Bo, as in her last moments she calls for Bo to help her close the door in order to keep out the sentinel. This was likely done with the thought of self-preservation in mind, rather than any care for Bo. This is also without mentioning the fact that she was well aware that there were dangerous sentinels near where she wanted him to go and still sent him there regardless of the oncoming threat, further proving that she most likely used Bo as a tool for her to discard whenever given the chance rather than a genuine accomplice. However, from what it is seen of her past, she seems to be tragic. She was experimented on by the scientists at JCJNSON, only for said experiments to end up having bad results and leaving her to start beating herself up on wall, and it's implied that she hated Nori so much because of how she believed she was responsible for something awful that happened to her when the planet's core exploded. But it isn't that bad given how little we see of her past and how she takes out all of her anger on Uzi, who had nothing to do with her plight.
The gold medal for the most evil character goes to
The Absolute Solver is an alien artificial intelligence that has the ability to mutate and corrupt Hadrai, particularly worker drones created by JCJNSON. Originally found within the improperly disposed of bin, it was later recovered by Tess and brought to Elliot Manor. The Solver's influence spread to the worker drones at the mansion, manipulating them to assist in a devastating massacre during a gala event. After causing the destruction of Earth with massive singularity, the Solver, disguised as Sin, utilized its assembly drones on various exoplanets to carry out its mysterious agenda, including creating eerie spires of deceased life forms and infiltrating cabin fever labs. The scientists on Copper-9 conducted experiments involving the Solver's programming on test subjects Nori and Gabe, with the goal of finding a cure. Unfortunately, the AI ended up taking control of Nori, leading to the catastrophic collapse of the planet's core and the extinction of all organic life. The infected programming was passed down to Nori and Gabe's children, Uzi and Zal, with Zal managing to harness her Solver powers despite sacrificing her AI. However, Uzi struggled to control her affliction, ultimately allowing the AI to completely possess her. It is responsible for the obliteration of numerous planets and exoplanets, resulting in the tragic loss of countless lives. Motivated purely by sadistic tendencies, it took pleasure in annihilating all forms of life, including humans, drones, and any other beings it encounters. Its actions began with the destruction of Earth, transforming the planet's core into a singularity, and it showed no signs of stopping as it set its sights on Copper-9. Evidence of its brutality can be seen in the human remains scattered around its vicinity, suggesting a history of killing. In comparison to other villains, none come close to matching its level of devastation, as it surpassed them in terms of power, ambition, and lack of redemption. Its actions had directly led to a multitude of significant events and plot development, from setting key events in motion to influencing the outcomes of crucial conflicts. Its presence is felt throughout the entire narrative. Its complexities and motivation drove the story forward, constantly challenging the other characters and pushing the boundaries of where they inhabit. Without it, the series would be fundamentally altered, highlighting its importance and central role in shaping the overall arc of the storyline. The disassembly drones and J and D were created with the sole purpose of attacking worker drones, transforming them into murder drones and wiping their memories to ensure compliance. These drones targeted various hosts, starting with them and eventually transferring to Tessa, the human, granting them double powers and even turning Uzi into a vampire. This led to a tragic incident at Camp 98.7 where Uzi lost control and inadvertently killed her classmates, with it also briefly possessed Uzi's mother, Nori, causing chaos at Cabin Fever Labs. Its actions are so extreme that it caused Uzi to reconsider her plans to exterminate humanity, realizing the extent of its cruelty.
And with that, the list is done. If you have your own character that should be ranked differently, or if I forgot a character, please let me know in the comment section below.